This broadcast is a Stephen K. Media production.
The success of the small business person is the cornerstone of the American economy. Welcome to the Small Business Today show with your hosts, Cruz and Hughes. The Small Business Today show is for and about small business advancement and development. What we do for you. We'll be taking your calls as we provide you small business intelligence and mentorship needed to grow your business creatively. Keep listening. The Small Business Today show with Cruz and Hughes starts now.
Hello and welcome back to today's episode of Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes right here on Blog Talk Radio, where we broadcast live Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and we also do this on Ustream.tv. This is the place where we discuss the topics that inspires entrepreneurs from thought to action. If you want to join the conversation, feel free. You can give us a call right here in the studio at 347-857-3958. Again, that number here is 347-857-3958. If you are listening to us through your Blog Talk player, you can always go into the chat room and put your questions in there, and our producer, Stephen K., will make certain that we address those questions during the hour. Well, sir, welcome back, Irv.
Well, I know. I'm glad to be back.
You were down at the beach soaking up the rays yesterday. And
No, not at all. I was listen. I was hot and heavy in some negotiations, man.
Well, did you win?
Yes, I won.
Because winning is everything.
Winning is everything. It is how you overcome all obstacles.
That's absolutely the truth. So how did the business deal go?
No, the business deal went really well. We were basically negotiating how we're going to go forward with this particular supplier, and it really went well. We put some things in, took some things out. You know how negotiations go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
you asked for everything at first.
Right. And then, and of course, we offered up things that we could give away.
Certainly.
Right. And so the negotiation went really, really well.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, I'll tell you what, you were missed.
Oh, yeah, was I missed?
You were missed. And yesterday's guest, remember we had Lynn Geralt on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me to tell you that he did miss you and he was thinking about you, but
Well,
he did
wonderful.
enjoy having your seat for the moment.
Well, I bet he did. I bet he did. And then not only that, but most people enjoy being on the air with you.
Absolutely. We always have a good time here.
Always.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a guest today, and I want to get straight to it because this is a guy that has a wealth of knowledge as it relates to being an entrepreneur, personal development, leadership. We're going to talk about those things today. Our guest is Mr. Norman York. Now, Norman is the president of York Career Development, Inc. Of Houston and Austin. Now, he is a personal and career development coach. Would you call it a development coach?
Well, it could be development, it could be life, it could be whatever you need. In other words, my job is to make your life and your work life better.
Awesome. Well, I want to say welcome to the show, Norman. It's going to be a pleasure to have you here and talk about your experiences.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much, John.
Well, let's talk a little bit about first your company. And I'll say the name again is York Career Development, Inc. Now, how did you get into this business?
Well, I got into this business through a very natural experience. I went broke in doing what I was doing.
Isn't that a good lesson?
Yeah. And, I bought a company that was a turnaround. I couldn't turn it around, and I went under, and I went through bankruptcy and divorce after a 25-year marriage, and had a lot of fun things happen. But from my perspective, like all things that seem bad and have adverse effects, there's always a seed of blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So the blessing was that it brought me into work that I've done for almost 30 years in helping people and teams and organizations be more effective at what they do.
Now, let's sort of hone that down a little bit. Now, who would you say is your typical client, if there is such a thing?
Well, most of my clients are small to medium-sized businesses. I mean, I do some consulting work with big corporations, but that's not where I think I have my greatest value.
Okay.
Because my work is built on solid trust and relationships. And in order to have that kind of relationship, you need continuity. In other words, I need a relationship that causes me and my partner to come into an organization on a continuous basis to be able to apply what we learned from the outset.
Now, when an entrepreneur comes to you, be it a small business or a medium-sized business, what are some of the major issues or the major struggles that they're having?
Well, people who come to me and say, help me start or buy our business, and a lot of people have in all these years, The first thing that I seek to do is help them determine if being in business for themselves is the right thing. Am I suited for this kind of an endeavor? Because if I don't see myself as suited, it will be very difficult for me to require the commitment of myself that I will need for success.
Now, there are a lot of people that Irv and I talk about on this show,
Sure.
and Irv, you can chime in on this, that are in a position where uh, they're not able to find the types of jobs or the types of position or the type of money doing the things that they were doing, I'd say just a couple of years ago.
Right.
And it would seem to me that those are probably some of the people that are looking to start a business or considering it.
Well, they probably are going to become in business for themselves, but unlike Irv, who chose to leave the corporate world
Sure.
and go into his own consulting practice,
Right.
a lot of these folks that are out of work, the 23 million or so,
Right.
are finding that they can't find jobs, but there is work. So
Right.
if they understand that, instead of feeling that life has, treated them badly, they can see that they've been blessed with the opportunity to work for themselves.
So do you believe then that those jobs are gone forever?
Well, I don't know the answer, obviously. But I do believe this, that a lot of jobs that have gone away are not coming back. And if they come back, they're going to be reconfigured to the point that the skills that I used previously are no longer applicable.
I would agree 100% with that.
And I also know that companies are doing everything they can to keep their fixed cost, payroll overhead as low as they can. Consequently, they want to use contract people, consultants,
Sure.
part-time people. So it still is an opportunity for people to use their skills from a different perspective. In other words, rather than being inside the organization, now they do work at the edge of the organization.
You know what? You know what, Norman? You bring to mind something that struck me years ago when I was faced with a decision whether or not I needed to step away from the comforts of the what I thought was the comforts of being in the corporate setting. And there's a book I read, I study, and it just jumped out at me one evening, and it literally said something to the effect of, he who does not work should not eat. And it jumped off the page at me because it didn't say he who has not job should not eat.
Right.
It said he who does not work should not eat. And it was for the first time in my life, and it literally changed my life because it dawned on me that it didn't say job, it said work.
Well, the interesting thing is there's nothing new about what's going on in the work world today. As a matter of fact, before the Industrial Revolution came along and created an infrastructure where people needed to go to the same place every day,
Right.
people did work.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, the first freelancers were really freelancers who came back from the Crusades,
That's
Yeah.
right.
and all they knew how to do was rape, kill, pillage, and burn. So they had to be retrained.
Sure.
So individual work, working for yourself, is really as old as we
Well,
know.
Time itself.
Well,
Right.
exactly right. And I'm always reminded, especially today, of how many people attach themselves to the job, and when the job goes away, they go with it.
Well, that's the issue of the identity, and of course,
Right.
the most applicable example that I know of is IBM. I mean, the IBMer truly was willing to do what was required of him or her in order to have this lifetime relationship that provided education, provided perks and benefits of all sorts.
Sure.
And when they left, as they really started doing about the time I came in this business, about 85, they really lost their sense of identity.
Right. And see, I believe when somebody, and you can correct me because you're the expert here, but I really believe, Norman, that when somebody loses their identity, trade that in for the job. I think they've been institutionalized.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's why people that spent so many years in that
Right.
mode were so devastated
Yeah.
and they
Oh,
had
yeah.
to leave.
Yeah, and some people get angry and violent, combative even, and I've been fortunate, I guess, in the context of this conversation, that I've never had that as an issue because I always believed that I could find some work to do.
Well, working for yourself has many advantages, but there are also some issues that we have to look at very
Sure.
carefully.
Absolutely.
And there are three issues that I talk about in my book. The first one is, do I have a marketable skill or product?
Right.
And you may say, well, that sounds stupid. Why would anybody go into business who didn't have a marketable skill or product? But many people do it all the time.
Sure.
And one of the concerns that I have is whether or not the person's endeavor is based on self-worth or ego.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that successful business owners have a lot of self-confidence.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing something or proposing to do something because I have a lot of ego driving me,
Right.
then I have to be very concerned that this person understands that his perception is not reality.
Correct.
It may be his reality,
Right.
but it's not necessarily his reality.
Doesn't necessarily mean that a customer is going to, that confidence is going to translate into sales or dollars.
Precisely.
Gotcha.
We're going to come back after this, and we're going to talk more with Mr. Norman York, who is our guest today. Norman is the president of York Career Development, Inc. If you would like to connect with Norman, you could do so by going to his business website, which is yorkinc.com. More in a moment with Mr. York.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
or even worse,
We've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
so how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market,
And this alternative is...
coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
From Christopher Nolan. The storm's coming. The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gaussian Reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today. Visit us on the web at cruiseandhughes.com. Here are your hosts, Cruz and Hughes.
Okay, welcome back to the show. If you're just joining in, our guest today is Mr. Norman York. Norman is the president of York Career Development, Inc. If you want to connect with Norman, you can do so by going to his business website, which is yorkinc.com. Now, Norman, we went to break. We were talking a little bit about the book that you have that's coming out here very soon. And the name of the book is The Successful Entrepreneur.
Well, I have to tell you, John, that the book is simply a collection of the things that I've done over the course of my career in helping people start or buy businesses. And most of the time over that period, I've simply given it away. I decided maybe I might make it into a commercial product and make a few dollars.
Why not?
And I guess, going back to what we were discussing earlier, I said there are three issues that one must address very honestly.
Sure.
Do I have a marketing skill or product? That's the first. The second one is, am I willing to market it?
Oh, wow.
And the operative word is willing. Do you mean able? No, I don't mean able. I mean willing. Anyone can market anything that they believe in, whether they can read and write or speak and hear or learn to send up Indian smoke signals. The question is, will I do it because I want to do it, because I enjoy doing it? Because if I don't enjoy doing it, if I do it because I have to, then I will do a poor job irrespective of how I go about it. So if I realize how much significance is involved in my willingness to go out and connect with people and build relationships and find avenues for my service or my product, then that's a key to success.
Wow.
Because you're really, Norman, talking about a passion right there that needs to convey to people who you're going to sell your product or service to.
Well, Irv, you're absolutely right. I mean, passion is a very, very critical ingredient. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in business successfully for him or herself? Anyone would. But the question is, in order to do it, am I willing to pay the price?
Right.
And, what am I doing this for? Is it for money? Well, that's part of it. But the real reason people, in my opinion, go into business for themselves is they want to be free.
Sure.
And freedom isn't free.
Right. And it always costs something.
Right.
Right.
And
right.
It's interesting you bring that up because I do training seminars and so on, and occasionally there was a while that I was doing entrepreneurship training at the University of Houston, where I was a mentor there for the graduating folks out of the Bauer College. And one of the interesting things, the questions I would get from the students a lot of times was, what will my success cost? You talking about success, and what are we talking about? What is this going to cost me? And I would always tell them, don't worry about it. It's going to cost all you have,
and then some, possibly.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and so and I've found that what you're saying is absolutely true. Unless someone is willing to pay all that they have to reach that success, and very rarely do people actually have to pay all that they have. But if they're not willing to, boy, it's tough to get them there a lot of times.
But everyone has to be willing to sacrifice for the sake of the success of the business. I've had conversations with wives and children.
Oh, wow.
And say, Daddy wants to buy this business. Are you willing to pay the price? And the kid might say, well, what price? Well, he may not be able to come to the Thursday soccer game.
Sure.
He may be out of town because his business requires it.
Sure, because you're not necessarily talking about money when you say paying the price.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, money may be second or third in line.
Sure.
And then that takes me to this third issue. And maybe, the first and second may be significant, but the third issue may be almost the deal breaker. And the third issue is, can I live with the fear?
Fear.
The fear.
Right, gotcha.
And there will be fear, okay? If
Absolutely.
you spent your life taking a paycheck every Friday,
absolutely,
and you go out on your own and you have to be responsible for what comes in the door, you will have fear.
No doubt.
And to deny it would be the worst thing you can do.
Right.
The question is, how will you deal with it?
Right.
In other words, you minimize the fear by knowing, first of all, what you're doing, having the resources to do it, and the confidence to apply the resources for success. But there will be times when you have to overcome a tendency, to say this is not worth my time.
Right. Sure.
We had a listener on the show once who typed in a question, and I forget what exactly Herb and I were talking about that day, but their question was, I may be paraphrasing here, but does having a business plan, having a well-prepared website, having a goal or a big enough why to, are all of those things, do they make a successful company? Does that mean that I'm going to be successful if I have all of those things?
Well, all of those things are necessary, and I can't suggest otherwise, but there's a guy named Mike Gerber who's written a book called The E-Myth, and I've written another one called The E-Myth Revisited.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about 3 factors that are the causes for small business failure. And the first one is, well, you have to have 3 areas of skill. Okay, the first area is technical skills. And many people go into a business because they have technical skills that they want to apply.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to have managerial skills, and you must have entrepreneurial skills. Because if you don't know how to manage your business, if you don't know how to run it from a financial perspective, then you're not going to know, how you're doing and how well you're doing. And entrepreneurial skills require that you constantly be researching your market.
Mm-hmm.
You constantly know where things are headed, because nothing lasts forever. And we always have to be mindful of the fact that, especially in a highly charged world of technology changes, we must be constantly sensitive, to our market's condition.
Now, and so basically what you're saying is that you let your clients know that there are no guarantees,
Well,
essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, there are 2 axioms that I propose, and they're in the book. The first one is, don't do it if you can't accept the possibility of failure. Because the only thing you're guaranteed in this country is the right to fail.
Right.
And if you do, as I have, then you will pay the price. When my business started to hemorrhage, and I had, people in my back room putting together products as we used, and I had very little money on Friday afternoon, and the question is, am I going to, pay my people, or am I going to make my tax deposit?
Right.
Well, I paid my people.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd make the tax deposit, but then I had to pay for that.
Sure.
You understand?
Sure.
That's right. And we're talking about payroll taxes.
Right,
Yeah.
precisely.
Oh, yeah,
that's,
absolutely.
that's a dangerous game right there.
That's a tough one.
So if you say that if this business fails, it'll ruin my health, my marriage, or don't do it.
And you tell your people that.
I
You tell your
them
clients that.
Oh, absolutely.
And what do they say? I mean, is that generally that aha moment where they really hadn't thought that far down the road?
Yeah, how do they respond to that?
Well, I think sometimes they don't know how to respond, but it's something that causes them to think about it and to consider the ramifications, and it relates very directly to the second axiom, and that is, don't put in more than half of your resources.
Oh, that's good.
And I have worked with people who came to me that found, as a matter of fact, yesterday, John, when you and I were talking, I was telling you about this man who lost his job in a large manufacturing operation, and he was determined. He was 25 years old. He was determined to buy a business. The guy that wanted to sell the business wanted far more money than this man's half of his resources, and he saw fit to step down. And he didn't buy a business till 5 years ago, and this was 1993, I think, when I first met him. So it was a wise decision that he made to wait until he was more mature, better financially able, and had much more to offer than he did when he was just a young man.
Wow. And I know that can definitely make the difference. But, some people feel that now is the time they must execute. And I think having that voice of maturity in your ear does help you make better decisions.
No doubt.
Because I can't tell you how many times that I've made a decision that I didn't quite know if it was the right decision to make, but I sold myself. I closed myself. And then I was unhappy with the outcome.
Well, I think sometimes those of us who are very passionate think once we have set a goal that there's nothing else but to do achieve that goal, even though we decide that the goal is probably not what we thought it was. And frankly, that's what happened to me years ago when I bought this business. I knew it was the wrong business. I knew the people in the business were not the right people. But, I thought I could make it work.
Right.
And realistically, there was no way I was going to be able to make it work. And I think when I got into it, I knew that. But it was too late, and I had to go through what I had to go through in order to,
Over what period of time before when you got in did you just finally close the doors?
Probably, well, I didn't close the doors. Actually, I let these guys take it over, and they took some debt and took some responsibility.
Sure.
But I could no longer be a part of it the way it was operating, and so I had put too much of my own resources into this thing, and consequently, I paid the price.
Wow. When we come back from break, I guess we'll talk a little bit about those different areas because I know that you do help people in the entrepreneurial arena, but you also talk to people who are trying to climb the corporate ladder as well.
I do.
Let's talk a little bit about them when we come back.
That is awesome. Well, Norman, one of the things, too, I'm hoping that we talk about, because you're talking about you acquiring a business, hoping to turn it around, couldn't get it to turn. And before we let you out of here, I want you to share with our listeners about the courage it takes to call it when it's time to call it. Because at some point it's time to call it and say, okay, we got to stop now. And it sounds like that's one of the things that you were absolutely able to do.
Well, not as well as I wish.
Okay, when we come back, we're gonna have more with Mr. Norman J. York. Folks, you're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. It's brought to you by RingCentral.com. To get RingCentral's virtual PBX for your business, you can call them today at 888-716-5022. More in a moment. Stay with us.
Turn up the sales on your website today with AnythingInternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with AnythingInternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Steven, how do I make radio advertising work?
or even worse,
We've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
so how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit StephenK.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@StephenK.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now at,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market,
And this alternative is...
coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters. From Christopher Nolan.
The storm's coming.
The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gautam's Reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings. Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We're wherever you are.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Norman York. Norman is the president of York Career Development, Inc. If you'd like to connect with Norman, you can do so at www.yorkinc.com. Now, Norman, we went to break. We were talking about those 3 things that are mentioned in your book, and I want to encourage everyone to get the book. It's called The Successful Entrepreneur. Now, when do you anticipate that it will be out?
It's being put into an ebook format right now, and we'll get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks.
And if someone wants to be put on a waiting list?
If they will contact me, I will make a list and let them know when it's available.
And you can contact Norman through his website, yorkinc.com, and York is Y-O-R-K. I wanted to talk about those individuals that you help develop, and they decide that, you know what, entrepreneurship is not for me. I perhaps need to be a better Indian in someone else's tribe, so to speak, and focus my talents in climbing that ladder. How do you help that individual?
It's what I call leadership. In other words, helping people understand leadership from a total perspective is a big part of what I do, because everyone is a leader. You say, well, I have no one reporting to me. You're still a leader because you're leading yourself. In other words, are you leading yourself in the proper manner? Are you taking care of yourself from a health perspective? Are you looking at the way you view the world? Is your attitude a positive attitude? So that's leadership in itself. But even if you're in a leader-follower mode, as a follower, you're still a leader, because you have the responsibility to communicate with your superior. If that person is making a mistake or doing something inappropriate, then your leadership role is to help that person improve. So from that perspective, we've always sought to help people become better leaders.
Now, you take that individual, and I would think that if I'm running a company, I could see a benefit to what you're doing, coming in and talking to my staff and helping develop them and make them better leaders, which would ultimately, I would think, add value to my corporation as it relates to my people capital.
Well, I think that leadership, well, I'll have to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
There is a man who was a captain of a Navy submarine, a nuclear submarine, who in 1 year took his sub from the last in its class of the fleet or whatever to first, and the enlistments of his crew went from 3 to 33. And the way he did this was by what I come to believe as servant leadership. In other words, as a leader, I am the servant of those who I serve. And that's what he did on the submarine. He made all of his people independent of bureaucracy. In other words, they did their own job, their own way, and the way they did it was okay as long as they got it done.
Sure. So it's very results-oriented.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
Now, would you say then that management should look at itself as being servant leaders to the employees that are underneath them?
Precisely. Exactly.
Now, that seems to be a change in thought.
That is a change in thought.
Well, it is for the most part, but it's not that new. It may be we are to a point now where we're embracing what many of us have believed and taught and spoken about for many years. And I think younger people coming into the role of managers are going to embrace this more and more, to the point that it will not be an anomaly. Mm-hmm. It will be more often than not the way things are done. I mean, you can't make, in my opinion, you can't make a command and control manager a leader unless that person wants to be. Leader, people have to want to lead. They have to derive their joy from seeing the success of the people that they are responsible for.
That's right.
So leadership, I guess, is not something that can be just trained and bestowed upon anyone.
Well, my bias says you can't teach leadership, but you can teach leadership principles. So if you embrace the principles and then apply them in your area of responsibility, then that's the way you become a leader.
See, that makes sense to me because a lot of times, Norman, especially in corporate circles, you see people who have this mentality about their position, and a lot of times they will, you'll hear the term micromanage,
right,
to the point that people literally lose their incentive to perform,
right,
because they get to feel as if, well, if I do what's necessary to really excel in my job, that's just going to mean I've got more to answer for. And next thing you know, they don't even want to take on new responsibility because they're going to only do what's required at the very least to keep whatever position and pay that they've got.
Well, what they need to do is be able to take ownership of what they're doing.
Right.
And they can take ownership by the trust that the leader has in them. Trust is fundamental to leadership. And the issue is, in order to trust people, like David Marquet, the ship captain, you have to trust yourself.
Right.
And if you don't trust yourself, you won't be able to trust other people. So that's why people who can't trust themselves stay in a command and control mode so they can keep control of the situation. David Marquet on the submarine gave up control in order to get control, because the control was then manifest in the actions of his crew.
Sure.
And I want to go back to this paradigm of management being servants to their employees, and I really like that, because even if you were to break it down to something of the most simplest of terms, when you think about a shepherd is there to serve the flock.
Right.
And then the better he is at serving the flock, the more the flock serves the shepherd. And I like that thinking in management in such a way that I truly believe that the more the manager works to develop those employees, and as you talked about, Mr. McKay, give that control, give that ability to the employee, that level of development that they go through, I think it really transcends your corporation or your small business to something wonderful.
Thing of it is, however, it takes courage.
I bet it does.
It takes courage.
Absolutely.
If you don't have confidence in yourself and if you're not willing to take the risk and trust people, this whole paradigm is useless, and that's why it's harder and harder for some organizations to move beyond it. And you can say, well, as I've said, a guy running a submarine's got 135 crew members. Well, what if he's running a corporation that has 135,000?
Sure.
Right.
Can he still incorporate a leader concept rather than a leader-follower concept? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes, but it has to flow from the top down.
Wow.
Sure.
And when you think about control, I'm a bit of a control freak. And I don't
really
know, just a little bit. Just a
wow.
little bit.
I didn't know that.
And I'm sitting here thinking about the time when I was teaching my daughter to drive and how much I had to coach myself to give up the control of that vehicle to these young hands, inexperienced hands. And it's the same thing even in our businesses. Sometimes we as leaders feel that we have to manage every process or we have to be involved in every decision, but we really stifle the growth of our people when we do that.
That's very true.
I write a monthly e-newsletter, which is very short, about 350 words, and in October I'm going to write about flow, and it comes from a book named Flow, and I'm not even going to try to tell you the name of the author because it's some long Polish name.
Okay.
And I would stumble trying to do it, but if you want to see it, just Google Flow.
Okay. F-L-O-W?
F-L-O-W. And it's all about coming to a place where I would call it being unconsciously competent, When you're
Awesome.
unconsciously competent, you're in flow.
Sure.
In other words, the work you're doing, you're so much a part of the work, there's no differentiation between you and the work.
Yeah, because we would say that's how we roll.
Right.
That's just how we're doing it. It's not
Precisely.
like there's some special effort going on to make that happen.
And I write this little leadership coach every month, and if you're interested in getting it, you can go to my website and you can sign up. There's no charge for it. I've done it for 12 years,
Really?
and it's just my way of giving back
I
to
love
the
it.
people that have given so much to me. But this flow, the whole idea of work being such a part of you that you're constantly connected to what you do. It's like my work. My work is not work. My work is joy, because I get to work with people. Sometimes they've been challenged,
Sure.
but they're not sick.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, I have to help them through challenging times,
Right.
but I mean, it's not like psychiatry or psychology. I don't, I'm not
Right.
dealing with people who are ill. And so it's a joy that is fulfilling to me to see the success of the people that I encounter.
Wow.
And you know what? That's a wonderful thing, too, when you can really embrace what you do and you enjoy what you do to the point where you can look at the results, and that keeps you going even through the difficult times when things get difficult, and you can keep going because you can build on those successes.
Well, I think sometimes it's keeping yourself motivated by what you have done and realizing the value that you've created, even when you're in times like some we've been in the last few years.
Sure. You know what? When we come back, Norman, I want to talk to you. I want to ask you some questions about some things I found in your current book, the one that's out there, using your inner power to find meaningful work. Because I saw some really intriguing things in there, so I want to come back and visit on those, okay?
It'll be a pleasure.
All right, folks, you're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. It's brought to you by the Lexington Law Firm. When you need credit help, get a free consultation today by calling 888-744-7081. More in a moment with Norman York of Career Development, Inc. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
or even worse,
We've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
so how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now at,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market,
And this alternative is...
coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters. From Christopher Nolan.
The storm's coming.
The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gotham Reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings. Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today. Visit us on the web at cruiseandhughes.com. Here are your hosts, Cruz and Hughes.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Norman J. York. Norman is the president of York Career Development, Inc. Now, York Career Development, Inc. provides specialized services to managers and executives who require highly individualized career transition and executive coaching programs. And we're talking a little bit about what Norman does in his business, as well as a book that he's written that is coming out very soon. The name of the book is called The Successful Entrepreneur. And if you want to be put on a waiting list, you can go to Norman's business website and connect with him through there, which is yorkinc.com. Now, Norman, you wrote another book, and Irvin was flipping through the book, found a few things in there that just jumped off the page at him.
Right. One of the things, Norman, I wanted to get this in because I went through the book. I thought it was fantastic, by the way, because it's really written more like a workbook where you can actually go through and do some things in the book. It's not just reading. It's designed to be studied and mulled over.
Well, let me tell you a little history of this. We actually published this book about 10 years ago under the same title, but it was more of a how-to book than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a what-to book and a why-to book more than a what-to book.
Gotcha.
Because if you think about going through some career-driven change, and you're thinking about looking at yourself from a different perspective and seeing aspects of yourself that you may not have ever looked at before, we wanted to make this a workbook type of volume that you could be able to do that comfortably. But rather than focusing on resumes and interviews and all the stuff that people do, we wanted to look at issues like attitude and motives. In other words, why do you want to do this? Well, you say, well, I want to eat. Yeah, but you're not hungry, so that's not going to motivate you.
Right.
So what are you going to do first? Well, I look at three motives. The first one is, where can I make the greatest contribution? In other words, where can I work where every day I can get up and I can see value being created by the effort that I make? The second motive is, where can I enjoy what I do? In my view, if you don't get up in the morning and look forward to 80 or 90% of what you're going to do, and you're in the wrong work.
Sure.
And if you lose that job, you should be grateful. And then the third motive is, where can I earn a proper reward? Well, is that money? Yes, but there are many other aspects that create reward.
Absolutely. One of the concepts that struck me in the book was your pyramid of success.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, again, going back to attitudes and motives and methods. People, sometimes don't want to hear about the motives and attitudes. They want to just get to the methods.
Sure.
But you see, we're dealing with the inner process more than the outer. I mean, you don't need what my partner and I have learned over the years to know how to go out and do job search.
Mm-hmm.
What you need is to understand that if you can't do it with a positive attitude and a feeling of joy and positive application, all of those things you do are going to be marginalized.
Right. Now, one of the things that I did see also was, which I thought was great, was kind of a 5-step process to develop your power to set and achieve goals.
Well, that process is, in my view, the most powerful that I've ever known, because the first step is, define your objective.
Sure.
What is it you want? The second step is create a plan with a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
The third step is create a burning desire. The fourth step is work with supreme confidence, and the fifth step is work with total commitment.
Well, I tell you, I really marveled at those because those are some intangibles, if you will, that you bulletized so that people can really get their head around those and focused on those. And one of the things that really kind of out of that 5-step process that really kind of jumped out was creating a burning desire, because you got to have a want to. The power of choice is always there, but if you don't use that power, that benefit to choose, you can do these other things and you can still be in trouble.
Well, I can't tell you how many people that I have met over these years who got into work that they really didn't want to do because their father said or their mother said or somebody else said.
Right.
Okay? And so they, why did you become a petroleum engineer? Well, my daddy went, this kind of stuff.
That's right.
And, now you're in a whole new world of work, and what do you want to do? Well, I want to teach. Well, all right, you're 38 years old. Why don't you teach? Maybe you want to go get a master's degree, or maybe you want a doctorate if you want to teach in college. But, this is the time for you to make choices that otherwise you would not make. So the fact that you were part of this downsizing or whatever brought you to me is a blessing.
Right.
And the quicker you can see the blessing, the sooner you'll be able to look back on this experience as the best thing that ever happened to you.
Well, I would think that a lot of people who experience this kind of thing, this kind of flux or change, if you will, they've got to be racked by fear a lot of times.
They are racked by fear. And of course, it's just like the entrepreneur. You're going to have it, but then what are you going to do with it?
Sure.
You see, when you look at that 5-step goal-setting model, the first 2 steps are intellectual.
Sure.
Okay?
Absolutely.
The second 2 steps are emotional.
Right.
When you put thought and feeling together, you create belief. And whatever you believe is going to determine what you're going to do.
That's good.
Everything you do is based on some belief in your own mind. You can't control anything directly on the outer. The only thing you can control is what you think and what you feel.
Sure.
But it's your choice. When you take responsibility for controlling what you think and what you feel, you create the belief that causes you to take the right action.
That's awesome.
Those are those non-academic things, Norman, that I believe that are absolutely necessary for small business people and people in general that they have to hear, they have to accept, so that they'll stop living those small lives that sometimes we choose for ourselves.
Well, it's kind of like our conversation yesterday. We were talking about these folks that are out of work and, that are so angry and so bitter and so full of negative energy. And you say, well, given what they've been through, they have a right to feel that way. And I won't say they don't. But if they want to be successful, they can't stay in that hole.
Right.
They've got to come out and say, wait a minute. The world is different than what I once knew, and I have to accept that and benefit from it and make it work for me rather than letting it work against me.
And that's the type of coaching that you provide to your clients.
That's what I try to do.
Wow.
That is absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that I was just thinking about, and maybe we'll hit this when we come back, John, because we touched on fear a couple of times, Norman, and really I think fear can be a motivation instead of a detractor if you let it. So maybe I can get your opinion on that when we come back.
I'll do it.
Okay, all right. Folks, you're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. It's brought to you by GrowSocial.com. You can maximize social media like Facebook and Twitter for your business. You can call Grow Social today at 877-484-3961. More in a moment. We're in the home stretch, so don't go away. We're going to talk about fear with Norman York when we get back.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
or even worse,
We've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
so how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now at,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market,
And this alternative is...
coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
From Christopher Nolan, the storm's coming. The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gautam's Reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We're wherever you are.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Our guest is Mr. Norman York, and he is the president of York Career Development, Inc. And Irv, you sort of set us up coming into the last break, and that question that we were going to talk about was fear-related, wasn't it?
Right. Because during the show we've talked about fear on we've just kind of touched it on a couple of points during the course of the conversation today. And, a lot of people here in recent years have been put in situations that they probably never thought they would be in. And, of course, fear comes up on a lot of people, comes up on all of us. But I believe fear can be a motivation if it's handled right.
I can't disagree with you, Irv. There's a book called Stations of the Mind written by a man named William Glasser. It's a great book, and he talks about feeling behaviors. In other words, we really have a choice about what we feel. Now, let's say something happens to me and the immediacy of it makes me angry. Well, that's normal.
Sure.
But after some reasonable point of time, if I'm still angry about the situation, Glasser would say, you're not angry, you're angering.
Wow.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm depressed because of some circumstance, after some point in time, Glasser would say, you're not depressed, you're depressing. In other words, you're going to use depression to keep you from going out and doing what you need to do whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
You're choosing to stay in that state.
Precisely.
Wow.
So it's when we understand how much of life is a choice.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
All of life.
All of it
is a choice. And I think that you said earlier that, there's so much that you don't control. But what you do control or what you can control, sometimes we choose not to.
Right. But it's all within us, what the choices that we make.
Norman, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, and I really respect your thoughts. I wish you much success on the new book that's coming out.
Thank you much, John.
Good stuff, sir.
The name of the book is called The Successful Entrepreneur. To reserve your copy today, you can connect with Mr. Norman York through his business website, which is www.yorkinc.com. He is the president of York Career Development, and if you need that level of development, if you were intrigued by anything that we've said today, please reach out to him and allow him to help you in your business. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in with Irv and myself. This has been Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. I'm John Cruz.
I'm Irv Hughes.
And this is the place where we discuss the topics that inspires entrepreneurs from thought to action. So until tomorrow, be smart, be successful, and above all else,
be in action.
Irv and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.